memorandum on the study session, and Mr. Zerleg, you wanted some clarification on that?
Clarification would be appreciated, yes. The letter recommends that we concentrate essentially next Monday on council rules and procedure, as well as providing background information for boards and committees. And I tried to secure a facilitator, could not for Monday. The folks I did talk to indicated that they would need more than an hour or two, and I think that would be a good segue into Councilman Slater's recommendations as well. So if Monday could be rules and procedures and boards and committees, that would be appreciated.
Okay. Sounds fine. Everybody nodding? Okay.
Madam Mayor, that would include...
Yes. Councilman Curran?
And that would include a code of conduct, perhaps, because that would fall under that?
I don't know if we're going to have time to do that night. We'll have to see how the time goes.
Maybe that material could still be supplied for the future. How's
Right.
that?
Madam Mayor, I think in terms
Councilwoman McGinnis?
I think in terms of preparation, though, for everybody, it would be good if we knew that those would be the two priorities that we would really be focusing on. Of course, if you can submit, I think that you indicated you might have some sample codes of conduct that you might be submitting. We can get those in advance, of course. That would just be easier for us to find the time to make sure we get to it. But I think if we have it clear that we'll be covering boards and committees and rules and procedures so that we can all be prepared for Monday, that would probably be beneficial now that we see how much we've got and the fact that the facilitator that we would really like for the other two things won't be available that day. So I think it would be a good way to split it up.
Okay. Sounds good to me. Okay, next we're going to go to council referrals, and we have an item that was referred by Councilman Slater for us, so I'll call on Councilman Slater at this time.
Thank you, Mayor. I hope my memo is pretty self-explanatory and that I don't have to go over everything in the memo. My intent was to start some proactive ideas from this council because we have a lot of hard work ahead of us, and I think we need to come together and make sure that we're doing what's right and best for Troy. So I certainly would like to answer some questions if there are any questions.
On the three proposals, there's 1, 2, and 3 as delineated here. We have no resolution on whether we need to pass a resolution or whether this is direction.
Well, I spoke with Mr. Zerleg about that, and I didn't ask for a resolution tonight because I wasn't sure if I was going to get consensus or not. So I didn't want to bother doing that without knowing there would be consensus. If there is consensus, I can ask that a resolution be prepared, or I suppose we could try to do something tonight if that's amenable. But I purposely didn't do that because I wasn't sure where we were going to go.
Maybe we should ask council members have questions or comments on the three proposals that are suggested. Councilman Mayor Pro Tem Fleming.
Thank you, Mayor. I like the approach here in the proposals. Just one point in proposal 1, you propose to authorize the use of grant money to the police department and the law department for an independent review. Fine with that. The grants will fund a review, recommendation, and implementation report by an established organization specializing in this process, i.e. IACP. And I've talked to you about this before, and I think that's International Association of Chiefs of Police.
Yes.
Is that correct, that acronym? I think there should be, I'm fine with the grant money for the independent review. I don't know if we should just decide now that that's the best organization to do it. I don't know a lot about them. I don't know if that's what you're proposing. You limit it to 1. I think the concept, consideration for an independent review to every department is good. I don't know that we should limit it to the IACP. But your other proposal too, we've talked about that before.
Right.
I like that. So
Just as a clarification, I was just trying to give an example in my proposal. I know there are more than one organization that could do something like that. I believe that's the organization that did the last review of the police department, but there are other independent bodies that could do that. I would maybe like to leave that up to management to give us some options with some pricing so that we know exactly what type of grant we would be initiating. But I did that just as an example.
Gotcha.
Well,
I wasn't recommending them per se.
and we've had review of some of the departments. For example, we had the Zucker report for the building department, and I think when we sat in the study room, we talked about reviewing all the departments and looking at everything. We did say we were going to review everything, and these are two important areas that, you know, if we have an outside look at those areas, and then they say that everything is being done to make it efficient, cost effective, running well, everything, then that is a good backing, and especially, you know, when it's an independent organization that does it. I also like the team building training for council, and I think that that ties in kind of with having a facilitator. Years ago, we've done that, and we've kind of gotten away from doing it. And I think any organization every now and then should try to do some type of activity like that, because it just helps. And we've been through a lot of things together, and I think this seems like an appropriate time to do that. And then as far as the executive summary report, the review process of all city departments, I think that in some ways perhaps that's something, I don't know, Mr. Zerlag, if that's something you've already been working on. You've mentioned before about doing something like that, so let's see what you have to say on that. Mr. Zerlag?
Thank you. Looking at these proposals, just so that you know, we being management, meets essentially twice a week with what we call a committee to look at all departments on whether they should be privatized or not. And we've utilized the services of Dick Carlisle of Carlisle Associates, who was expert essentially in the area of planning, zoning, code enforcement, building inspection, engineering. And we have yet to look at public works, which essentially is all facets of maintenance, whether it be grass and parks or rights of way, streets and drains, fleet, water, sewer. Once Mr. Carlisle is done with that, we've essentially exhausted his expertise in that area, and it's important for us to have another independent consultant to look at other departments that are left that have experts in their areas. I would even add the International City Management Association to look at the city manager's office if I could. So that's my comments for proposal 1. In terms of proposal 3, absolutely, we've had, I'll call them piecemeal reports as to how we're doing with departments as we go, and I plan on having a comprehensive report on where we are with the help of staff and our consultants as well.
Okay.
Mayor?
Councilman Slater?
If I could just briefly, this is no reflection on the police department or the law department. I talked with, Ms. Bloom prior to tonight, and I just think for transparency purposes, to attempt to build some trust from the community, that it's imperative that we look at every department. I'm very confident that an independent review is going to support those two departments. But I just think we need to do every department at this point, so that that is not to single them out and identify them. It's just to continue with what the city management has been doing up until now.
Mayor?
Okay, yes.
Attorney.
Mrs. Bloom?
I would defer to Ms. Beltramini first, and then I would
Pardon? I'm sorry, I can't.
I know Ms. Beltramini had her hand up before I did, so I would defer to her first, and then would like an opportunity to address the council.
Okay. I didn't hear her ask for the, so I didn't see her. Okay, Mrs. Beltramini?
I went back to hand signals like you
I
asked
know.
us to do 4 weeks ago.
No,
so.
we went to voice because I was having trouble looking both ways at the same time. Sorry about that.
So, just tell me at the beginning of every meeting which
Okay.
system we're under, and
Yeah,
I'll be good.
we're on voice now,
Okay,
sorry.
that's what I used originally, and then I thought, that's
Right.
not what she said.
It's okay.
As I read this, I was heartened by the suggestions made by Councilman Slater. It gives some definition to part of the money we set aside while still allowing some of the other uses that we talked about. I do believe, as you, Madam Mayor, that the team building, the orientation kinds of activities of building a unit have fallen by the wayside in the last several years, and that's probably something particularly in these times that can prove very helpful as we move forward. And I think we owe it to not only ourselves and our staff, but the people to know where the privatization, the efficiency cuts and reorganizations and restructuring is at any given moment. So I really do like having that, even piecemeal. And I also think that as you put it in writing, you know I'm a firm believer in 95 eyes are better than just 2. You will find suggestions and maybe some further perfecting of the system we're using. And I think that will be good for all of us. But I do think that when we're talking about contracting out whole departments, laying off 30 people at a time, the people of Troy deserve a report on why that is happening and why that's the best solution. So I think that all of the suggestions were good, and I would encourage us to follow Mr. Slater's suggestions.
Further comments?
Mayor.
Yes, Mrs. Bloom.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I just wanted, as the one department that does not report to city management, I just wanted to provide council with an update as to what our department is doing. We have been meeting with the privatization committee, and again, I welcome the chance to show how efficient we actually are and to be able to demonstrate that to council. I do thank you for the opportunity to have some monies perhaps set aside to pay for somebody else to evaluate our department. It is going to be difficult. The International Association that I belong to does not offer this service. The state association does not offer this service as well. So I'm going to have my work cut out in trying to find somebody other than the privatization committee that can perform this service for us. But in any event, we certainly will provide information to you, comparisons and contrasts, so that you can be sure that our department is very efficient. And again, any suggestions, we welcome the chance to meet with the privatization committee so that if there are suggestions for further efficiencies, we're ready to implement them.
Any further comments?
Madam Mayor,
Councilwoman Kerwin?
I'm a little confused by that, because I know Councilmember Slater just talked about having a third party and having it go through the manager's office, I believe, even in terms of the legal department. Was that my understanding of what you said?
Well,
Just so it would be completely third party.
I think there is a need for third party, and we did talk a little bit about that, and I think I was thinking of us getting back some information who that could possibly be, possibly from the manager's office or the legal department. They are separate, so I think we have to be careful there.
I think the town managers.
But I don't think I don't think the law department should review the manager's office, and I don't think the manager's office should review the legal department. So I think we need to find a way so we can all work together. That's my goal.
Right. Further discussion on this?
Madam Mayor?
Yes, Councilwoman McGinnis?
I think actually this discussion kind of illustrates what I was thinking, and when I'm looking at the proposals, I think actually proposal 3 might need to come before proposal 1, because I think in terms of getting a clear picture of where we're at with each of the departments, even just knowing that a review is going to start, or that if you're meeting twice a week with the management team to have these reviews or kind of address each department, to have a general idea of where we're going. And I know that we've been pestering you about this while you're trying to get your bearings through each of the departments, but I think certain things like what we've assigned to Carlisle or Carlisle Wortman to be dealing with, to know what departments that's slated for and when that will be done. I think right now we don't really have a clear view of what has already been decided and what we're still trying to figure out. So I think that probably if we were able to start with proposal 3, where we were given an overview almost department by department, we can then take some information, that financial piece perhaps that we need for proposal 1 to be effective, and go from there. But I think without that, it's difficult to know what work you've already done and what work we still need to kind of determine will be starting up in the timeline for that.
Mayor.
And actually, I saw all 3 things actually could go on at the same time, because they're different areas. But I do see your point too about getting that information. Remember, we had a couple of study sessions at the end of council meetings where we were giving updates on where the privatization matter was coming along, and then what was coming next and that kind of thing. So I think that the effort to continually keep us up on all of that has been made and will continue. Do you feel you need a resolution from us, Mr. Zerlag, on these
Not at all.
items?
I don't need a resolution.
Pardon?
I do not need a resolution on this. And
Okay.
where we're going next in terms of our committee is Public Works. And after Public Works, Mr. Carlisle has essentially exhausted his expertise, and he did a very good job for us. We may use him for the community center as well in terms of looking at a methodology for a management contract. But again, I have a call into ICMA to look at how we propose to restructure the manager's office. And I've already spoken with the Chief Mayor about contacting, and it was IACP, for looking at our police department.
Okay.
And after that, there's not too many departments left.
Right.
Madam Mayor.
Okay. Councilman Beltrame?
I agree with Councilman Slater that the privatization is all being funneled through the manager's office, but it's probably not a good idea for the manager's office to evaluate the city attorney or vice versa. They both answer to us.
Right.
So I don't understand why we get summary reports from only one of them. We might want a report from the city attorney on where she is in what they're doing and where they intend to go with this. I think that might be the cleanest way to handle that, is like the city manager, she send a report directly to us.
Right. And I think she said she was working on sending that to us. Mr. Zerlag?
Just so that you know, Lori met with our committee, and that essentially was the outcome of what we spoke about, is that Lori would write a report directly to council on what's going on. You can decide to do what you like at that point.
Any other discussion on this item?
Mayor?
Councilman Howard?
Yeah, with respect to proposal 2, I guess I'd like to steer that more in the direction of strategic planning. And one of the things I think this council needs to do, and I think that the team building is good for more of a facilitation of conversation, because clearly council is going to disagree on issues, and there's nothing at all wrong with that, of course. But my concern is that there's kind of this tug and pull with respect to whether or not we need to ring fence the public safety element of the city government, or if it needs to be, across the spectrum reduction in services and costs. And I guess I could see that that happening in a strategic planning session. And also, I think it would be good for us to revisit our goals and objectives again, as we haven't really had a comprehensive discussion of that for a few years now.
Right, and I think that's where we indicated we wanted to have our facilitator with us, but I appreciate your comments on that. Thank you. Is that enough on that particular item? Councilman Kerwin?
Just to recognize that we'll want to do calendar work again to come up with another meeting. I don't think that we even looked at an additional meeting unless I'm mistaken, and so we're going to want to do that.
Okay, that's good. Okay. You ready to go to council comments?
Mayor,
Yes, Councilman Slater?
so we don't need a resolution.
No, he said he,
Will this act as a proposal, 3 proposals that will be acted on then? Is that a consensus?
yes. It seemed to be consensus from council, so that's why I asked if you needed a resolution.
Perhaps we can work independently with the law department on that end.
Right.
That'd be good.
Okay.
Okay.
Sounds good. Okay, council comments? People have items they wish to bring up. This is the time to do that. Yes, Councilman Kerwin?
I had previously talked about the Land Policy Institute, which is out of Michigan State University. For our home viewers, that website is www.landpolicy.msu.edu. And the Land Policy Institute out of Michigan State has been conducting, for the past 100 days, absolutely free economy sessions, Economy 101, 201, and 301, at no charge at all. All of the information from those sessions is available on the website at MSU. And it's a really important grounding for understanding where we've been as a state and where we need to go as regions in a state. And I found it very informative, and it's wonderful that they made that offering absolutely free. I found it very worthwhile. I attended on scholarship, thank you, from Michigan State University Extension, the Advanced Academy, which was held this past week, and it included 2 sessions, and that's why I'm kind of pumped up about is your community ready for form-based codes, and was a little, really, folks, it's just been too long that we're not. And I think it's crucial to us taking a leap forward in our economic development. So I have information for everybody on chasing the past or investing in our future. I brought this back for council, and this is again available on the website. The second session I attended was redevelopment of commercial areas, and was excited again to think about Maple Corridor and Big Beaver. I remember Mayor Pro Tem Fleming, who attended some of the Maple Corridor Lawrence Tech classes, Councilmember Beltramini and Dick Beltramini, the mayor who would come through, and we saw so much possibility along Maple with the variety of different zoning going on there, where we have apartments and density and housing and industrial and commercial and everything, which tends to bring in that young educated worker that likes to have that variety and that happening place. And I see that we need to take that step and encourage developers to see what we have here, to redevelop those areas, especially looking at that crucial intersection right there at Maple and Livernois, where there is so much possibility and really could spur us forward. So I wish we could resurrect some of those Lawrence Tech plans, because those students were so creative in their ideas on what we can do with that. And then simply let this be known with some vigor that Troy is ready to work with those who are interested in investing for a very good deal, according to our city assessor right now, to bring economic development and spur prosperity in our community. So I share that information with my council members, and also encourage everybody to go to citizenplanner.msu.edu I'm so proud that Extension, in partnership, makes these things available to all of our citizens for free in an effort to help us all understand the new economy, embrace the change, and move forward.
Councilwoman Kerwin, I'm glad you mentioned about going. I did not attend, but I've been thinking for some time now, we've been so caught up with all of our financial woes and our shrinking of city government, things we had to do for privatization, consolidation, regionalization. That's been our focus. And I thought to myself, gee, I hope we don't lose that spark that we've had for quite some time of saying all the positive things that Troy really has to offer in our community. And I started thinking about all of the positive things that are still here and will continue to be here in the community. And I'd like to see us showcasing, marketing that a little bit more. Mayor Pro Tem Fleming, you've talked about that ever since you were first elected, and I think several of us have. And I'm hoping that maybe all of you have had that same concern, that we were kind of, I know myself, I was kind of in the doldrums over all of this. And it's very serious, and it as Nino Licari said at the beginning, this is the worst on assessments that we've ever had. Several people have said this is the worst financial situation that they've ever seen in 30 years in finance. So, yes, we're dealing with it, and I want people to know that we really are, and I think it's very evident that we are dealing with it. But I'd also like us to do some positive things to kind of say, and not just about city government, but about the community itself, because we really do have a great community here. And I'm sure that as things start turning around for businesses, that things will start picking up, and but I think that's important for all of us to do, and some of that can come in our strategic planning and team building, working together on things, and we can talk about those kinds of things, in addition to the hard jobs that we have to do. The other thing I wanted to bring up is that I was a little bit disturbed when I read an article in the Free Press that a reporter had broached a subject which I thought was off limits, and I had such a quandary about why she would even be having this information and following it at all, because it seemed that the reporter was trying to get into a matter that was a confidential information, and I wondered what we could do to avoid that situation in a future situation. So I bring it to you. We got some emails in today. I think it's very unfortunate. I really do, because there are things that need to be handled in the public domain, and then there are other things that, if it's strictly it's like attorney-client privilege, So I had some concerns. I wanted to just mention it. I don't know how others felt, but I was kind of disturbed by it. Are there further council comments?
Madam Mayor.
Councilwoman Beltramini?
First, I appreciate, I, as you all know, I was gone when the phone calls from the Free Press came through, but I know there were lots of them because they were made on my machine. And I have to agree with Mary about the form-based codes. It's beyond time, absolutely beyond time. And you all have heard me express this. I am scared to death that the economy will turn around, somebody will bring us a plan that is doable under the old code, but not anywhere near what we want, and we're going to have to approve it. And that is our future if we continue to drag our heels. So, like Councilwoman Kerwin, I'd like to see that done sooner rather than later. The other thing is an announcement for the public. In the bad news situation, we do still have people being foreclosed on. on their homes. And the county treasurer, Andy Meisner, will be hosting a foreclosure prevention workshop this Wednesday from 7 to 8:30 p.m. in the West Bloomfield Library. That's at 4600 Walnut Lake Road. He's going to talk about options, trends, the timelines that are involved in the foreclosure process, and options for help. So if anyone is in that boat, that's one thing that might help you. On tonight's agenda, the whole historic district thing, and then in the minutes of the Historic District Commission was a comment by Muriel Rounds that said, and where's the marker on Square Lake Road designating the Krell Farm site? And I remember when we talked about the expansion of the parking lot for John's,
Right.
the marker would be put. And there's been no placement of that marker, and I don't know if that's because the parking lot expansion so far is just gravel, but I'd appreciate it if we could check on that.
Sure.
The second thing is, as we need to be more and more transparent, and I think we have that responsibility, some of these committee minutes that we get show that a department head, a director, gave a summary report, and the original is attached, or it's attached to the original of the minutes. If there is a summary report given by a staff member to a committee, could we have a copy of it attached to our copy of the minutes? Because it would give us just that little bit more information as people ask us questions.
Yes.
Thank you.
Any other council comments? Yes, Mr. Zerlake?
We will have for the next city council meeting a timeline to adopt a form-based code.
Okay.
And, thank you. And-
Councilman Kerwin?
And ordinance review. Will we have a timeline on ordinance review as well
For the zoning ordinance,
for the entire ordinance documents? And he's nodding, so I guess the answer is yes.
I
I think Mrs. Kerwin is talking about the entire slate of ordinances.
I
right?
am.
Oh, I'm talking about zoning.
So, just want to put, we can have a timeline for the zoning
You know
ordinance
what?
as well.
Madam Mayor,
We've been working on that.
that's
for
our
quite-
job.
Yeah.
I mean, that's our job. So there needs to be, in my opinion, I don't know if my colleagues agree, but we need to actually know how we're going to gobble that up. Now, we read the minutes, we see the planning commission that's going through chapters. I appreciate that, but knowing a date certain, knowing a calendar, knowing when we can start consuming some of those, I would appreciate it if there's support from the council here to see how that work product is going to be done. Again, I go back with Councilmember Beltramini, when it was 2 years, 2 years, 2 years, it became like a running joke, how long it will take. About 2 years. That was a long time ago. I have gray hair.
I'd like to see that too. I know we've had a lot of other things we're working on, but we could have some update on how we're coming along. Yes, Mrs. Bloom?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. And I just want to, because our department would be involved in that as well, and I know that currently we base our review on priorities. So if there's a change to state law, then we bring it to you on a regular basis. But Councilwoman Kerman, I understand the form-based codes, certainly that needs to be done. Are you looking for a timeline for all of the rest of the ordinances? Because our department would be involved in that as well.
Absolutely. I mean, for a long, and I suppose other council members can speak up, but I mean, we've been making amendments, and we were going to get the whole package, and it's going to come through, and we should wait, and this. I just really want to know when the gestalt, and that's really what my frustration is here, is when is the gestalt going to be here? I can't be put off anymore for 2 more years. I don't even have 2 more years of service here. We have to really get some stuff done. We have to really do our jobs here. That's public policy. That's what we do, but we're not doing it.
Okay. Mayor Pro Tem Fleming.
Yes. We've had a citizen, a couple of meetings asked specifically for what we paid consultants. You know, in 2009, specifically what we paid Carlisle Wortman. I know that's probably available in the budget information, but if we could direct citizens or that particular citizen exactly where to find that number, I think we should. If you can address that now, I'd appreciate it.
Well, and besides Carlisle Wortman, we do some road consultant work and some other kinds of things where we found it was less expensive to use those people than to use our own people.
We have many
I
consultants.
think you're looking for a certain dollar amount.
And we'll be happy to provide that next meeting. But
Okay.
is the request essentially for all of our consultants that we use?
Yes.
Planning, zoning, engineering,
Every
bond,
consultant.
um,
Madam Mayor?
finance.
Councilman Kerwin?
And I think that may have gone into proposal 3. Proposal 3 was that transparency piece
Yeah.
where in fact people are saying, well, we hear that there's an economic benefit in using consultants. Show us. And that's why I think it would roll in comfortably with the suggestion from
Okay.
Councilmember Slater that we show that. And that transparency that Councilmember Beltramini just spoke of would be on the website so that people could see. And it would also be a testament for those of us who go out and speak to residents. So it's part of a bigger
Sure.
picture.
And not to muddy the waters, but to give an example, our engineering department has a slew of consultants for capital projects. For decades, the engineering department has been a hybrid between a core staff level
Right.
and supplementation by consultants. So if we say we pay Hubble, Roth, and Clark X number of dollars and we pay this other consulting firm X number of dollars, it would be a disservice if that's all we did. I think that has to be done in tandem with, and by the way, this consulting firm, if you were to compare it to having full-time staff, that cost would be X number of dollars. That's going to take a little bit of work. The same with Carlisle Associates. When you go from 5 people to 2 and a consultant, your consultant cost goes up, but you save money by not having employees online in the planning department, as an example. So, in which context would you like? Would you like it in terms of a holistic approach? Here's our consultant costs. Here's what the cost would be if we were to not have consultants and had employees perform this work. I mean, is that what you're looking for?
Yeah.
That won't be next meeting, then.
Fleming?
I would think for the first phase, simply what the consultant costs are, because I think for you to go back and do a cost analysis and wait on that to determine what the savings were using consultant, it's going to take some time. So just to satisfy the first request would be, it's 2-part. A, number 1, what did we pay consultants in 2009, breakdown just by vendor. And then the second phase, as we go through, determine what that savings was, but I wouldn't wait on the savings.
I'm confident that we had done that during budget sessions as a report, and we'll be happy to dig that out again.
Okay.
It'll change somewhat because we're restructuring the organization.
Okay. Any other council comments? Okay, we have a study item and we have a closed session item. Are we going to do the study item in here or go in the other room and then do closed session after that? What's the, that's what we usually do.
Whatever you like. We
Right,
can talk
okay.
here or we can talk across the hall.
We usually do that round table thing in there. So we need to move the closed session now so that when we go into the other room, then
Yeah.
we'll do the study item and then we'll do the closed session.
May I have if I may, if I can go back on the consultant cost, do you also want to include contractors that we hire? Because we also supplement our public works department and snow plowing. We contract out all of our garbage and rubbish. We do many things that employees otherwise do in other cities. I mean, do you just want soft consultants, or do you want everything that's contracted out?
Mayor Pro Tem Fleming?
The short answer, I think, is total transparency, everything we contract out. Now that, and I think that's probably available in the budget by vendor, if you classify a vendor as a contractor, subcontractor, whatever you can do that. I'm hoping this is not creating a lot of work that's the last thing I want to do because you've got so many other things to do.
My,
But if-
my, my primary concern is that it creates a lot of confusion and misconception without a total analysis. So we'll have a disclaimer in front. You know, we're paying this
Do
much
that.
to a contractor to supplement snow plowing, but please know if we had employees, it would cost more. I just can't say how much more until I get the analysis.
Exactly.
All right, would someone like to move the resolution for the closed session?
Mayor?
Councilman Howard?
I just have a question. The documentation supporting the closed session looked more like an FYI, and is management looking for direction from council? Because, I mean, it sounds like, I mean, I appreciate the information, and quite frankly, it was a bit of a surprise to get that, but I'm not sure that there's really anything for us to do in closed session.
Mrs. Bloom?
Mayor, it's up to council whether or not they feel a need to meet and to get more information to supplement what was provided in writing. I know I had a request from at least one council member that was interested in having more information.
I think if we have a request from a council member to have a session to get more information, then I think it behooves us to do it. But I appreciate the question.
Mayor?
Yes, Councilman Slater?
Be it resolved that Troy City Council shall meet in closed session as permitted by MCL 15.268, parentheses H, MCL 15.243G.
Support.
Moved by Councilman Slater, seconded by Councilwoman Kerwin, that we approve the resolution as printed and read. Discussion? Vote, Mrs. Bartholomew?
Councilmember Slater?
Yes.
Mayor Schilling?
Yes.
Councilmember Beltramini?
Yes.
Fleming?
Yes.
Howard?
No?
Kerwin?
Yes.
McGinnis?
Yes.
Motion passes. Our study item is Chapter 82, the Property Maintenance Code, responsibility to cut weeds and grass, and so we'll recess and then reconvene in the other room, in the council board room. 2, property maintenance code, responsibility to cut weeds and grass. You saw our report in the agenda, and Mr. Zerlag wants me to call on, or you're gonna call on Mr. Miller, right?
If Mr. Miller could talk about this matter, I'd appreciate it.
All right.
Thank you.
Mr. Miller.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and Councils. With me also I have Carol Anderson, Tim Richnack, Brent Savanot, and Mark Steinbeck, who was the principal author of the ordinance. It was adopted by council on October 5th of 2009. And we made a point of noting that in that report we did identify that people would be responsible to maintain the lawn areas between their home and curb. In looking at major thoroughfares, there are about 9,500 properties on both county and city thoroughfares, but approximately only 100 or less are not maintained. And the problem is primarily along major thoroughfares, once again, not public roads and neighborhoods. We don't really see that unless there's foreclosure problems from that standpoint. So what's important to note then, Parks and Recreation role in this matter is that they maintain with their contractors the median areas, which is not necessarily the problem that we're dealing with. We're dealing with those public areas between curb and a house. And what's also important to note that in 2009, we reduced the number of cuttings from 5 a year to 3 a year. And also, we have 82 curb miles of county roads and 40 miles of city major roads. And we also have had a new contractor, which is also very important to note, because that new contractor charges 3 cents per lineal foot, where in 2007, 2008, and 2009 it was 6.5 cents per lineal foot. So understand, I remember when this came to council, we had concerns that whether or not this contractor can maintain these costs, whether it's sustainable. Well, we'll wait and see what happens. So in the past, the cost, and remember these were 5 cuttings because we're down to 3. In 2007 it was $55,000, 2008 $67,000, and then in 2009 when we reduced the number of cuttings it went down to $36,000 a year. Approximately 84% of the mowing are on county roads, 16% are on city-owned roads. So therefore, also important to note that given the current rate of 3 cents, it's going to cost approximately $17,000 in total to mow those city and county areas. And we've also estimated in the Public Works Department there's $30,000 of administrative costs.
3,000.
Yeah, excuse me, did I say 30? 3,000, I apologize. So what's happening now is we have received some input and complaints about enforcement of this ordinance. And so we've identified 4 options to be able to deal with the situation. First is to do nothing. In other words, maintain the ordinance as is, which then private property owners would still be responsible for mowing those right-of-way areas, and that's 0 cost to the city. The second option is that the city cut along city-owned right-of-ways, and we're estimating that then would cost through contractors $2,720. Option 3 would be to just cut those right-of-way areas which are in RCOC, Road Commission of Oakland County, and that would cost $14,280. Or the last option is that we amend the ordinance and then, we amend the ordinance and then cut both city and county major thoroughfares, and that would have a cost of $17,000. So what we're doing here this evening is to try to receive input from City Council on whether or not we should amend the ordinance and how to amend it. And I see that Tim has a comment.
Well, I think it's important to understand too that $17,000 is based on historical footages. Now, if you designate that we're going to cut all of the right-of-ways and people stop cutting what they have been cutting in the past as private property owners, then you have to take a look at that 3 cents a lineal foot times 3 cuttings a year times the 80 curb miles of county road and 40 curb miles of city road. So I just want to make sure that understand that that $17,000 is just based on historical cutting that we have been doing for tree cuttings over the last 3 years in our linear footage.
And it's at the 3 cents per lineal foot, which we're not sure if that's going to be sustainable. We'll have to wait and find out.
Tim, if I may, what would that number be, roughly?
You've got 5,280.
600,000 feet.
My calculator's working.
1.8 million. No.
About 3 cents.
No, 18,000.
Might be 108,000.
180,000.
So look at all the money I've been saving in all these years by cutting it. We've been cutting ours for 45 years.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor, can I ask Mr. Richnick a question?
Yes.
I mean, even when we maintained those areas, there were always certain residents who maintained it, correct?
Oh, yes, there's the vast majority of people in the community that have cut the property in fronts or adjacent to their homes, or some of the subdivisions, homeowners associations would cut those areas. There was a vast array of different ways that it got cut.
Okay. People have questions? I see. Okay. Were you?
Did I speak or hold my hand up in this meeting?
Now you speak,
Mayor.
because I can't see.
Madam Mayor,
Go ahead.
just a comment. I really appreciate the detailed report that you gave in preparation for this meeting. But as I drive around, what I've noticed, if you have a homeowner whose house fronts a major road, they consider that part of their yard. And I'll tell you what, they in general do a really good job of cutting it. They don't seem to have a problem, whatever. Where I've seen the problem driving around town, and I'm sure I haven't seen every situation, but when an individual has a fence in their backyard or something that distinguishes, they mow to that property line on the fence, and that usually comes really close to the sidewalk. They don't go outside of that fence generally to mow that grass, because sometimes you may have to go a long ways around. They don't see it, they don't view it, they don't consider it part of their property, and I don't know how you make the change to the ordinance for that, but I voted for having everybody do, and I thought it was the right thing to do. But what I see, and I sympathize with the people who do have a boundary line defined, a fence or something, that's where I see more prevalent the grass is getting really high. And people that have that fence, they don't see that as their property. Then they have a concern, I've heard from some people, you have too, that when you're out there mowing, you're behind the fence, nobody sees you, they can't see you from their house, there's no visual. If anything goes wrong out there, you're on your own, and they're concerned about injuring a pedestrian or injuring someone coming down the street, throwing a rock, the liability of that and so forth, and who's responsible. If they're mowing a city right-of-way back there, and you really can't see from your house what's going on out there, your only major thoroughfare, then there's some really safety concerns, I think, that they have, and I think that's legitimate. I didn't think about that when we voted this in.
Councilman Slater, I heard you before Councilman Kerwin. Go ahead.
My comment is that I'm new, and I certainly don't want to speak for Maureen, but I think it's a good idea for the new council to come in and try and change something that we voted on, especially 7-0, just 1 year ago. I don't think that's a good thing to do, but when you were doing this, was there a review process that you had set to review this after a period of time to take a look and see if it was a good idea?
No. Councilman Kerwin?
It was a money issue. I mean, we were looking at things that we could live with, and this was something that we could live with, and also became apparent to us on county. I mean, it was a serious thing when we realized how much we were doing on county, and that was a pretty unified effort. It was really I think someone was absent, but for those of us who were here, we did voted unanimously for those who were here. One concern that I have, which hasn't been brought up, really, but that's the fact that we've gone through a lot of lawn mowing companies, and right now it's a pretty good deal, so you're running the numbers on that pretty good deal. But we've seen pretty good deals and yet not been able to hold on to them. So when we're figuring out this money, is it a couple thousand, is it 17,000, is it 180,000? That's just kind of magic money based on whomever will do it for the moment in time that we're doing it. That's a driving concern for me. In terms of Councilmember Fleming's understanding of the problem, and I am troubled by how that would be addressed by ordinance. I mean, I'm a process person on that. It would need to be a clear ordinance, and I don't know that you can come in. And my final thing, and then I'll be done, because I've talked about, I'm not sure that the price point is exact. I'm not sure how you would tweak the ordinance to meet those needs. The third thing, which played into the whole conversation last time, is the issue of apparent blight. And that's really what came from resident concerns recently, was the apparent, oh my, look, now it's 12 inches, now it's 14, and the city's through with that. I hope that tonight some of the conversation can address that concern as well.
Councilwoman Beltrame?
First, a question, I guess, for Mark. Do we have the manpower to enforce this ordinance?
Yes.
Okay. And that being the answer, as I drive around town, and it's a change and it's hard, and for those people who have a fence or a row of conifers in their backyard, they don't see it until they drive by there, and then they go, oh, well, nobody really knows it's mine, so, you know. But when you drive down the street, there may be 18 houses, all of which have backyards that have conifers, and then the sidewalk, and then this expanse, and sometimes it's 5 feet, and sometimes it's 20 feet. Of those 18 houses, most people are cutting that grass. And it's just a couple that aren't. And so it is my thought that the majority of people agree with us that this is something that is something they can do. And they would rather do that than pay $39 or $50 a year in extra taxes to have the service that they used to have. And I mean, I read an article in the paper yesterday about the city of Detroit with all of their problems, and yet we all see those articles in the newspaper. If there's blight, people in those neighborhoods are like, okay, the city can't afford to do it, I'm going to fix it. And we're talking about people not even cutting their own yards, and that's very distressing to me in a city like Troy, that we're having to sit here tonight and go, people aren't cutting their yards, maybe we should do it. No, government should not be doing it. We shouldn't have been doing it all along. We did it because it was a nice thing to do. We can't afford that anymore. Let's enforce the ordinance and get over it.
Well, I also think something else is happening is that for those of us that about a major road and have been cutting it for 45 years, we never thought of, and there used to be a lot of right-of-way out there before they expanded the road, put the sidewalk in it. We never thought of it as a burden upon us. The reason that we cut it is that then it would look the same as our grass, and when you live on a corner or the edge of a subdivision, it's how your subdivision appears to people when they come, and so we wanted it to look good. We not only cut it, but we fertilize it. And if there was new grass, you know, we'd water it. So I think that a lot of people have been doing that all along. And then now what I see happening is for those that didn't cut before, they're realizing it's not going to get cut, and they're going out and cutting it. They're saying, hey, I don't want this lawn, I'm going to go out there and cut it. Because that's what happened with one of my neighbors. I didn't say anything to the neighbor. And they may have gotten, I don't know if they got the letter from the city or whatever. All I know is that it's cut. It's been cut ever since. So I think, again, sometimes people just have to realize that they're going to do it. I said, I cut mine before I cut the rest of the grass. I start there so that it's always done. And I haven't had a problem. I do understand there's different situations and people look at things in different ways. I just think it was a good way for us to save money. And the other thing is that always galled me is how much money we have to spend on county roads And the county doesn't care, and the county cuts even few less often than we would. Councilman Slater?
I think I have to agree that we've come to a point where we can't keep jumping back and forth on certain issues. I think we're gonna deal with this when the snow falls this winter, and I don't think we can keep flip-flopping back and forth. I think you thought this out before, and it sounds like you thought it out. I would only, maybe if I could make one suggestion, part of what I heard was an issue with the letter, or a tone of the letter. Could we include in the letter some alternatives for senior citizens, or if you feel it's a danger in the letter, to at least let them contact the city and have somebody review that and see if it maybe can fit into, you know, the program.
The home chore program?
Home chore program, if it is a safety issue, to, and maybe tone the letter appropriately.
We can do that. I saw
okay.
head noddings around the table. We can certainly do that.
Councilman Kerwin?
You know, and this is another opportunity for Eagle Scouts or other ones. I mean, really, this would be a great, I think Councilmember Beltramini really did highlight something. Here we are, and this is a piece that people in our community can embrace. If someone is struggling, as you point out, Mayor Pro Tem, on one of those lots, this is an opportunity for someone to say, hey, I can help here. I can make a difference, and it's a very tangible difference because it does look wonderful when that is cut. So if we can connect people who want to give back in their community with those who are in need of someone to come and cut during the summer months, this might be a key connector. I'm hoping.
Okay. Councilman McGinnis?
I think I agree with the consensus that's been given around the table. I think you just get to a very slippery slope in terms of the decisions that you're making to go forward, and there are other decisions that are going to be coming up probably fairly quickly in terms of the snow removal. We've talked about them in theory, but we're going to have to make those decisions, and we're going to have to stick to them. And I think really it's a minority of people that this may be affecting in a way that we weren't expecting it to. And I think if we can put some provisions in place that may potentially put it out there if circumstances call for it, that there may be some sort of waiver, there may be some sort of program set up where we can tie it into volunteering. I think that really covers that small minority that we need to take into consideration, because it's disseminating information to the public, potentially for the first time, and having the public react to that. So as long as we're able to provide additional information and it's reaching them, I think, in a timely manner, and provides them with a way to ask questions if they need additional information, it's a path that we need to go down and stick to, because I think it's just the beginning of some of the other decisions that we're going to have to make that are going to be similarly situated.
Okay, any other comments? Mayor Pro Tem Fleming?
I agree with Councilman Slater and Councilman McGinnis, and I'll edit that in. Just the suggestion on the letter is, if a person has a health concern, obviously we would point them in a direction. But if someone feels that it's a safety concern, that would qualify too, that we could point them to someone else or they could help.
Councilman Beltramini?
I mean, you live on a major road and still cut your grass. And yet everyone's perception of that is different. I also understand that, but I don't know how we manage sending able-bodied 35-year-old people to the home chore program. I mean, that's not an option.
Right.
So I think that each and every neighborhood is going to have to begin their own little networking of people who are willing to cut. I think there's only so much that we can do, but if you look at the back of most church bulletins this season, newsletters, there are people out there that are willing to cut grass. So, but I think that there are some circumstances where we might like to refer them to some government service. We just can't.
And I think that this is a great opportune time for entrepreneurs. I mean, literally, who could be driving by and seeing this, and then let's make a deal and go in, because I think that would be helpful if someone says, oh my gosh, you could do it for that. I'm thinking of young kids, but truly, they're able-bodied adults who have with services, and this would be a great time for them to take a look around Troy, and let's make a deal. So I would prefer to see the private sector, volunteers, people, as you point out, Councilmember Beltramini, in the neighborhood, to say, I noticed that this needs to be done, I'm here. I'll help you. I'll lend a hand. And right now, that builds community, that builds care in the neighborhoods, and that is a recognition that government is not here to do everything for everybody. And I think people actually appreciate that. Get back to those core services and do what you can do well.
Well, the homeowners associations used to get together to talk about things in their neighborhoods or their area that they could do together, and then as people have lived there longer and longer, they get so they don't go to those, or they have some groups have dissolved, but others are there. That might be another thing. They could talk about it at the homeowners meeting, and they could say, okay, these people, maybe there's kids in the neighborhood that, want to do it just for their particular street. Okay, any other on the study?
There's one last comment on enforcement. I heard enforcement issue. We are enforcing.
Yes, we are.
Because coming from the background of that does tend to deter light.
Okay.
Our philosophy also is to have compliance before conviction.
Right. Yeah.
Someone
Absolutely.
speaking.
Okay, pardon? Oh, yes, Mrs. Bloom, after study item, we take a public comment if they wish to have one?
It's up to the council if you wanted to entertain
To
that
have
or
a
not.
public comment?
Sure.
Okay. We had a member of the audience who wanted to speak. Would you like to go to the microphone, please? No?
I'm not prepared to do this.
Okay.
But I have legit concerns, and I don't necessarily believe.
Okay.
You have to come to the
If you want to come to the microphone, please, ma'am. Is that Melissa Cummings, is that correct?
Yes, Melissa Cummings. Yes, I do live on the back of 18 Mile does abut to my home, and I do not see this property. I've lived there for 8 years. I put this in my speech 2 weeks ago. I don't know what more to say to this other than it's not my property. And what I heard Council Kerwin say how they checked into different landscaping companies and the different pricing and stuff. And I read the city action report, 3 cents linear foot. But how is it that you're gonna come after us and have us mow it for free? That part does not sit well with me at all. It's not mine to mow. I've said it again. I'll just keep saying it. It's not mine to mow. I don't look. It's not there. If it was in front of me, if I had a driveway that came off that major city road, I would have no problem maintaining that property because I would be using that property to access my home. I don't have a driveway back there. So I don't understand how this is right. I just don't. You'd be willing to pay a landscaping company to do this for a great rate, but you can't guarantee a great price, so you're going to come after us and have it do it for free. That part I don't get.
Thank you, ma'am. Anyone else? Yes, ma'am. Would you come to the microphone, please? Give us your name.
Certainly. My name is Cam Lafife, and I live next door to Melissa. My property also backs to 18 Mile. I have a couple questions and comments. That is a county road, and excuse me if I'm not familiar with who maintains what, but being that it is a county road, is it not parties number one being the county's responsibility to maintain that area? I don't know that, and I'm asking for that answer. And if it is the county can dictate, if that's using the correct word, to the city, we are not going to be responsible for that. It is your responsibility. I don't know the sequence of steps, if you will. So I'm trying to understand that. Also, if the city is being told to mow that or maintain that, does the county reimburse the city partially, or will they be willing to kind of give some money to the city for maintaining their right-of-ways? Also, it's being referenced that this is grass. That is not grass. It's weeds back there. And also there's a sidewalk back there. And what we contend with, even though we don't see it, is motorists who are disrespectful and throw things outside the vehicles, anything from beer bottles to paper to whatever. The middle school children walking down that way leave debris down there. Now, I have been mowing it. We've contracted someone to mow it to avoid getting ticketed. Our contractor has told us he will be willing to mow there, but he wants to do it on a weekly basis so he does not damage his machinery. He does, and he's a commercial landscaper, but yet he feels that his machinery could be in jeopardy because of it being weeds, because of it being by the highway, and who knows what's under there. And he's not going to send his people to kind of walk through and make sure there's nothing that can get in the way that will damage it. So I've already paid for 2 to 3 mowings because we had to have this done by a certain date, the first mowing. I also am concerned about the benefit of having citizens do it. You talk about saving money. However, unless it's stated, everyone is to mow their lawn on Wednesday every other week, every third week, and set your blade at 3 inches, there's not going to be a uniformity in appearance. And I've lived in Troy since 1976. And one of my initial draws to Troy was Troy's wanting to stay looking beautiful. And I think there's going to be an issue with trying to enforce it, and also having it look nice, at least when you're driving down any of the roads, the county or the city, and if it's being maintained by the city, it's pleasant to see that everything looks the same. It's eye-appealing. The aesthetics are going to be lost. That's my feeling. I also have a concern. Melissa brought this up initially. She checked with the insurance company. If we are required to maintain that property and an accident happens, say our lawnmowers kick up a stone and a car passing by gets the stone on the windshield, well, they're going to know who did. I mean, it's obvious the lawnmower did it. I will bet you 8 out of 10 times, if not all 10 times, they're going to come and want us to reimburse them for that window. Our homeowners will not do that because it's not our property. If it throws a stone and causes an accident, injures someone walking by, we're liable. Can we come to the city and say, we just got sued for X number of dollars? We have no recourse other than out of our pockets. So what is more important, and I don't mean to sound harsh to that, but there's a concern of liability that we're being asked to assume. And I don't know if it's been investigated, and if it hasn't, I'm suggesting that the liability aspect be reviewed.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. We'll get the answers to your questions. Thank you. Mr. Miller, could we ask you about the county?
Yes.
Rather than the original
Well,
question?
first of all, the county will not reimburse us, and all they will maintain is the first 5 feet next to the road and the rest they won't mow.
And the reason for that is for sight distance problems.
Right.
And all the other areas will then be unmaintained.
Okay.
totally.
All right, thank you. Okay, we have a closed session item next, so we'll excuse people. Thank you.